Hey everybody, it's your friend Carson coming back at you with another video. Just figured I'd do another video. It's been a little while, and I have a great cause that this video is going to. Tonight in this demonstration, I will be making a small sculpture of a knitting needles and yarn. And the sculpture itself will be donated to OC's elementary school. Their PTA is having a fundraiser, and there will be a online auction which will go to benefit the students, and it'll go towards field trips, and it'll go towards accelerated reading programs, different types of student achievement, help support and get the kids supplies and everything else. So I'm very excited to be a part of this, and my friend is a dad at this particular school, so I think it's really fun. Before we begin, I try to have a topic for discussion as we go into our videos, and tonight I thought we could talk about teachers, since I'm ultimately going to be donating this particular sculpture to a school. So I was thinking about all the teachers in my life that I've had, and the mentors and the people that have really impacted my life, and it's a really important thing, I think. So if you guys could just comment. I'm doing the camera on the phone, and I'm doing it a little different. I have it sideways today. Maybe I hope the sound quality is okay. If somebody could just drop me a comment, give me a 1 to 10 on the sound quality, that would be great. You guys can also find my videos archived on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/c/capglass, CAPGLASS. I'm also on Instagram at capglass. So yeah, without further ado, I'd like to get us started. So today, like I said, we'll be making a small sculpture, and I'll be making it out of all clear glass. We'll be using borosilicate glass. If any of the parents or any of the students ever get to see this video, I'd like to kind of explain just a little background. I know a lot of people that are going to be watching know are very familiar with Lampworking, but what I do is called Lampworking or flame working, and I work with a material called borosilicate glass. And borosilicate glass was developed in Germany, I believe, in the 1920s. It's a thermally shock-resistant type of glass, and the way we work it is we use what's called a bench burner, or just a torch. You can call it a torch. And so this torch, it uses oxygen and propane, and it has an inner fire, and then I also can use an outer fire, which I have on foot pedal switch. So if any of the kids get to watch this, that's great. Just know that Uncle Carson plays with fire in a very controlled manner. Also, I forgot to mention, I have one of my fun hats on today. This is my Pooh Bear hat. The OCE's mascot are the otters, and I figured, well, I think one of my mascots is got to be Pooh Bear, so I had to put on Pooh Bear today. Anyways, so just a couple of materials that I'll be using. I'll be using these are borosilicate 8mm just rods. And these will be my handles. They're called punnies. I'll also be using a bunch of 3mm rod. To make the needles that'll be going through the ball of yarn, I will be using some 5mm rod. I'll probably use some tweezers, and I'll also be using a piece of tubing. And this is just a clear piece of tubing. I'll start with this. This will become ultimately become the ball of yarn. So I'll start with this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm just going to shorten it up a little bit and I'm going to leave a little hole on the bottom, so that way when I go to start wrapping my yarn, it'll be stable. So let's get it started, guys. All right. If anybody's watching this video and you're wondering, why are you wearing glasses? The reason I wear glasses is because there's something called a sodium flare, which the camera will see. It's an orange type of light, and these glasses allow me to see through that sodium flare, and it blocks that. It blocks certain wavelengths of light, so I'm able to see what I'm doing in the flame. All right. All right. So I'm thinking about doing this video. I was thinking about all the teachers and mentors that I've had in my life, and just how fortunate and blessed I've been to have some phenomenal teachers and mentors. All right, so that's going to be the blank to get us started with our ball of yarn. So I'm just going to warm this up a little bit. I was thinking about those early days, the elementary school days, and just the interesting people that were my teachers. I had one teacher. I think he was my third grade teacher. His name was Mr. B, or is Mr. B. As far as I know, Mr. B is still with us. And Mr. B was awesome. He had a really good way of just coaching people, and he had interesting ways of kind of commanding respect from his classroom. One of those ways was if we were out of line, he would make us write down things from the dictionary, like all kinds of different definitions. If one of the kids was getting really just stir crazy, he would have them do push-ups in the middle of the floor in the classroom. So I was thinking about Mr. B. And that was at a school in Athens, Georgia. I had 2 elementary schools as a kid. One was here in Atlanta, and it was called Annie West Elementary. And Annie West is no longer there. But it's real interesting because I'm still friends with some of those folks. Some of my friends from elementary and at Annie West. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just taking this rod and I'm just starting to wrap it around. Just wrapping it. I'm not really too concerned about making it neat. As we all know, kind of a ball of yarn is pretty free form, right? It's pretty loose, and it's got different variations and different characteristics. So it's one of the nice things I've found about making sculpture is that it doesn't have to be perfect. As a matter of fact, what I'm trying to do when I'm making a sculpture is I'm trying to kind of capture something that in real life, might exist. So nothing is absolutely perfect, and if I remember that, I can capture the idea, or I can capture the essence of this of whatever I'm trying to make. And one of the goals as somebody who's doing a sculpture is going to be, I'm going to try to trick you into believing that what this is a ball of yarn and a couple of knitting needles sticking out of it. And so there's certain ways that I can do that. I can give certain visual cues and certain indications that, in fact, what you're looking at is a ball of yarn. So my job is not to actually create a perfect replica, but it is to try to convey an idea, you know, of what you're of saying. Okay, the idea that I'm trying to convey is a ball of yarn with a pair of knitting needles in there. And so if I'm doing that, what makes a ball of yarn with a pair of knitting needles look like a ball of yarn with a pair of knitting needles? Well, it's generally pretty chaotic, and it's got a couple of knitting needles sticking through it. And so what I'm doing is I'm kind of creating just a mess of glass on display. Just need to do one more. What I'll do is, that's about where I'm at right now. I'll do one more going this way. Then I'm going to grab it from another side with a handle, and I'll change the axis and kind of move it like that. So maybe I'll try to focus this one sort of in the middle so I can create more of a ball shape. The other thing that's really great about sculpture to me is that it's not a functional piece. So I don't have to be overly concerned with it being super stable. I know if you're a glass blower and you're watching me do this, you might be thinking, oh my goodness, he's got all kinds of compound joints in there and everything else, which is true. But so long as the thing holds together, you know, our mission is accomplished. You know, this is going to go onto somebody's desk probably, or on a mantelpiece somewhere, and it's just going to be one of them things. It's a purely piece of art. It does not have any function other to be aesthetically pleasing. So that's kind of key when I'm thinking about or planning a project like this. You know, this would not be okay if I was thinking about making it into a drinking glass. It wouldn't. What I'm doing right now with the glass, it would be unstable and it wouldn't work out too well. But since this is just going to be a piece for somebody to put on their mantle shelf, it'll be great. All right, so I'm going to kind of heat this in a little bit. I don't know if you guys can see very well. That's where we're at. So I'm thinking about teachers and what the influential people in my life. As a matter of fact, the first ever knitting needles and glass sculpture that I made is called Kathy's Knitting. And Kathy is my stepmom. And I made that for her a couple of years ago. And she's been an influence. She's been a good influencer in my life. We haven't always gotten along swimmingly, but we do now. And she has always been a good stepmom for me. So I'm really grateful for her. So that she was the original inspiration for this piece. Alright guys, we're coming along. Anybody has any questions, just feel free to drop a comment there. I'd be more than happy to answer questions. Okay. I think it's time that we switch handles again. So, find a good place for the next handle. I've been thinking a lot about my glass blowing teachers as well. You know, even still today, it's really important for me to have teachers. I have people in my life that are, you know, kind of mentors, and I have people in my profession that I look up to. So I'm never too old to have a teacher. You know, I don't think I'll ever have learned too much. Life is one long journey, and the journey itself, I think, is a lot better if I can remain teachable. It's also really important, I think. Alright, we're coming along, we're coming right along. I think I'll go ahead and switch my handle again. If you've ever made a ball of yarn, you know that you take your yarn from your skein, and you just start wrapping it. And you might wrap 10 times one way, and then you turn it and do another 10 times on a different side. So that's what we're doing. We're just making a ball of yarn out of glass. It's probably time again to switch handles. I said we do one more around here. I'll switch handles again, maybe do one more, and then we'll be done. so that's where we're at. Alright, now with this last handle, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure it's welded pretty well, because that's what's going to be the post that goes into the base. Alright, it's looking pretty yarny to me. Let's add maybe one more strand ready to go. Maybe two. I think I've got two ready to go, so. And I just want to kind of melt this down a little bit. Make sure everything's laying flat, just like a ball of yarn. Alright, so that's our ball of yarn. I don't know how well you guys can see that. It doesn't look like much on the camera, I don't think. It looks like a big mess, but once we get the needles in there, it'll look really cool. Alright, so I'm going to put this in the kiln, and we'll get started on the needles. Alright, so for my needles I'll be using some 5mm rod. You guys can see that. And what I'll do is I'll make a flat spot on the bottom of them, because if you've ever seen those knitting needles that have just a little flat divot on the bottom, then I'll make them to a length, then I'll tear them apart, and then I'll weld them to our piece. So the first step of that is going to be just making a little Maria on the end of this here. Okay. This looks about right to me. Now, okay, so that will be our knitting needle. I'm going to tear it maybe in half, maybe up here, maybe up there. And remember, this is not actually a life-size knitting needle, but when I add it to the actual sculpture itself, it'll have the mass of the yarn ball, so the optical illusion will appear that the needle is in fact this long, when in actuality it's only this much glass. So let me go ahead and replicate this again. Let's see. About right there. Now knitting needles are symmetrical, so I just want to make sure that we're cutting off the right length here. Put a little bit of marker on there so I can actually see it. Okay, so here are our two knit needles. They're about the same length. One's maybe a little longer than the other, but that's okay. Now, I think I'll have one sticking out longer one way and the other longer the other way. So, uh-oh. And sometimes we drop hot glass. It's okay. one. Alright, so now this one. Like that. We got these two. And for the illusion, the optical illusion, it's going to be important to make sure that the where it's going to sit on the base, that those needles poking through make sense. That they look like, okay, this is a static thing, and this is how a ball of yarn would sit. So. Here's our ball of yarn again. And what I will do is I'll just go ahead. I think I'll start with the needle ends. Okay, that's one needle end. Let's see, let me go ahead and do the needle end, and then I will do this side of the needle. So, right about right there. One needle through the yarn ball. That looks pretty good. Let's see, maybe the next one. The next one has a lot longer of a point here, so we'll have to make the angle a little bit more shallow. That way, when it's sitting on its base, it'll look like it's supposed to be there. All right. This guy. Make sure that angle is right. Looks good to me. Okay. So now this guy. All right, and there you have it, ladies and gents. Cap glass, knitting needle, and knitting needles and yarn ball sculpture. Thanks everybody for watching. See you next time.